Hi, it's Tim K5OHY. I'm out here at the Bush House. It's just a beautiful day out here. It's 82 degrees. We're finally done with our little cold front that we had come in. I apologize about the noise. They're trimming some trees across the street. So this is my local park, the Bush family home here in Midland, Texas. So I'm going to do something kind of interesting today. I want to try out two of my favorite POTA antennas, and I want to kind of compare them side by side using the reverse beacon. So let me show you what I have set up here. So recently I've been using this in-fed random wire, which is essentially just a non-resonant wire, and this one is 29 feet long, and it goes to a 9-to-1 Unun. And I have one 17-foot counterpoise wire that I just string along the ground, and then I have one wire as you can see here, and that just goes to my triple mag mount in the bed of my truck, and I think that definitely helps with the lower bands. So over here I have a quarter wave vertical. This right here is also known as a POTAPREformer. So it's essentially a quarter wave vertical with two elevated radials that go out to these electric fence posts. And the radials, I use speaker wire. I just cut them to the length, and with speaker wire is handy because you already have two of the same length. And I added these little clips so I can just clip it to the mirror mount that I have on this tripod. You have to run a choke with this antenna. If you don't want to choke, the coax will become part of the counterpoise and it'll mess up the tuning. So I have a 17-foot whip here, and it is adjusted using a nano VNA to get the lowest SWR and the frequency you're going for. So I have my 10-meter radials set up, and I've adjusted the whip. You can take, I meant to bring Sharpie with me because you can adjust it and find the best spot, make a mark here, and then that way you know where you need to put it for each band without having to use your nano VNA each time. So I have both antennas running over to this switch here. My nano VNA, I don't know if you can see it, but it's saying that at 28.04 megahertz, I'm at 1.2 SWR. So I'm going to go ahead and just basically send test and then my call sign on a few different bands with each antenna. Now between antennas, I'm going to change frequencies up a couple kilohertz or kilohertz. That way the reverse beacons, one beacon won't pick you up again on the same frequency within a certain amount of minutes. I think it's 5 minutes. All right, so I've got the radio set on 10 meters at 5 watts, and I'm on the POTAPREformer now. I'm going to go ahead and send out a test, wait a couple minutes, send out another test, and then move frequencies and try the other antenna. And then I'm just going to compare using the reverse beacon where the signal's going. I've got my 15-meter radials and the whip adjusted for 15 meters. So far, the random wire, it did better on 10 meters. I was kind of surprised. So I'm running 5 watts. I hit about 5 or 6 beacons with the random wire, and I only hit 2 with the POTAPREformer. I have the reverse beacon data from both antennas on a few different bands. I tested them on 10 meters, 15 meters, 17 meters, and 20 meters. Here I have the data from the reverse beacon network on 17 meters. And as you can see, at one point the frequency changes, and that's the way I know which antenna I was using. I always did the POTAPREformer first. And so I have these spots. And I created maps for each antenna on each band. And what I did is I just copied and pasted the information into my own website. So I took the POTAPREformer data and I go over to this website and I just can paste the data in here.
and it'll give me an interactive map. It's an HTML file that I have pulled up for each antenna on each band I tried on. So if we look at 10 meters, this is the POTAPREformer on 10 meters. I only hit 2 spotters on the reverse beacon network, a little bit stronger out to the west. I was at 12 dB in Washington, and I was only 3 dB in New York. And this little box here kind of gives a summary of how many spots, the maximum distance, maximum signal to noise ratio, and then the average signal to noise ratio. So here was the end-fed random wire on 10 meters. And as you can see, I hit quite a few more than the POTAPREformer. So on 10 meters, the random wire did better. 15 meters was kind of interesting. I hit a lot of spotters with the POTAPREformer. However, I had a very high noise level on the POTAPREformer on 15 meters for some reason. I have never seen that before with this antenna, so I don't know if somebody was running some equipment that was causing some interference. But even though I hit all these spotters, using that antenna for an activation would have been difficult because of the noise level. The random wire did okay on 15 meters. I hit 5 spotters. Um, a little bit stronger out here in California, 18 dB there. And as you can see, this map has different size circles and different color. Green is 0 to 9 dB, and then yellow is from 10 to 19 dB, and then red is from 20 to 30 dB. And then the larger the circle, the higher the signal noise ratio. So as you can see here, it's a small green circle, and it was 3 dB, and this one's slightly bigger, and it was 7. On 17 meters, the POTAPREformer did well, hit 10 spotters, and had a pretty high signal noise ratio here in Salt Lake City, 26 dB. Um, and then, so, up into Canada was actually pretty decent as well. The end-fed random wire did fairly well on 17 meters as well. I have 6 RBN spots, and um, I was pretty strong in Utah as well, 31 dB. I think that was the strongest signal I had all day. And then on 20 meters, the POTAPREformer hit 6 spots. Still strong in Utah, and then in Omaha. And then the end-fed random wire only hit 3. Um, Southern Utah looked pretty decent. Omaha was okay, and then way up here in Canada, I was at 6 dB, so only 3 spots there. Um, and then here are the spots for the whole day. This does include a short POTA activation after the little test I did on both antennas. Um, so as you can see, I hit quite a few reverse beacon spotters all over the country. Some of them quite strong, and then a lot of them were just, a decent signal noise ratio. And then here's a map of my contacts that I made during a brief POTA activation. And I stayed on the end-fed random wire for about 10 minutes, and then I switched over to the POTAPREformer on 20 meters. And I did notice that my contact, I had more contacts on the POTAPREformer quite a bit faster than I had on the end-fed random wire. So I don't know if the signal was getting out a little better. My signal reports were a little bit better on this POTAPREformer as well. With all this information, I think the takeaway for me is if I was going to do a QRP activation on 1 or 2 bands, I would probably pick the quarter wave vertical with the elevated radials. But if I wanted to work more than 2 bands, I would probably stay with the end-fed random wire because the signal's still getting out fairly well. And it's just really convenient to put up one antenna and not have to adjust anything. The POTAPREformer does take a little adjusting between bands and a few minutes. So if you're short on time and want to work a bunch of bands, I think the end-fed random wire is probably a better antenna, more versatile. But the POTAPREformer performed better on every band except for 10 meters.
Paul. Paul is always 599. I don't know what he's using, but no, he's more like a 599. So I love doing QRP, and part of the reason is, you know, it's a slower pace. Sometimes it's kind of nice not to have a pile up, and I do enjoy that most of the time. But on a nice day, sitting out here at the park without, you know, just kind of relaxing and having a QSO every couple minutes is really kind of nice. So it's been about 6 minutes. I've got 5 QSOs on the log. And here in a few minutes, I'm going to switch over to the POTAPREformer, and you know, who knows? Maybe we'll see a difference. All right, it's been 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and flip over to the POTAPREformer. I'm gonna turn off the antenna tuner, and then I'm gonna go ahead and call CQ again. And while that's going, I'm gonna take a quick look at, I've hit quite a few beacons, I mean, on the random wire. Came way down. That guy was here in Midland. He must have turned down his power quite a bit. All right, I'm gonna call CQ one more time. If I don't get anybody, then I'm gonna go ahead and call it quits, I think. Yeah, it's beautiful out here.
We didn't enjoy last week.
This is a really good friend. He's contacted me 177 times, almost always here.